Rob's there, big Mark's there.
We originally started years and years ago with no prep racing on the concrete from the finish line going towards the starting line, and NHRA had a different idea on that.
Yeah, they weren't too happy.
On and then you had to drive the car. Outlaw Armageddon is in Noble, Oklahoma, which is roughly about 45 minutes from the city. And then
So is Stillwater.
this is true. This is
the
true.
other direction.
So it's only like an hour and a half if you were to leave one door and go to the next door.
Yeah, probably.
And you'd be able to listen to their products the whole way there.
There you go.
Had family, friends, loud, living loud. I like that.
One of the cars that's going to be in the Kicker booth is my personal car. It's a 99 Camaro that I enter it in all the daily driver classes and just pretty much whoop everybody. I have a full Kicker system in it. I got 2 tins in the back and a box that weighs 150 pounds, and I still race.
The other car that's going to be there is my car, is a black convertible 93 Mustang. It too is a street raced car. It's a 5-speed car, so it's a handful. It's fun. It's got a nitrous fogger on it, nitrous express. But the coolest part of my car is that it also has a Kicker complete sound system in it. Subwoofers and all the mids and highs and everything. And I literally drive around and people can hear me that don't want to hear me, but I mean, I'm okay with that, you know.
Yeah.
I just drive out of their lives. Come on out to Outlaw Armageddon, see what we work so hard all year long to put together, reaching out to family and friends where they join hands with us and make all this happen. Everybody that you all like on TV and everybody that you don't like on TV, come out to their house and see exactly what they've got going on and see all businesses that have come together to join hands and put on the best show that we could possibly put on. And it's August 9th through the 11th. It's going to be hot. I'm not going to lie to you. There's going to be loud music. There's going to be fast cars. And I'm going to be there.
It's going to be a good time.
It's going to be a good time. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be living loud.
Yeah, living loud.
I like that.
At Outlaw Armageddon.
Outlaw Armageddon.
Music is my passion, my livelihood, and it's in my DNA. My pals at Kicker Marine Audio gave me a chance to take the music, what I love and listen to, at home, on stage, and in the car, onto the water. Hi, this is Jason Bonham, and I want to say a big thank you to my friends at Kicker Audio for inspiring the songs and the stories behind the music that inspires America. Go overboard! This is your time.
I'm Steve Irby. I'm the president and the founder of Kicker. Back in high school, I was playing in a rock and roll band and needed a bigger speaker for my keyboard. And I went to my dad and asked him for $300. I remember the newspaper kind of dropped and he says, "Is that something that we could build?" 2 or 3 days later, he came home with a book on audio and it had plans for building speakers. We built a speaker enclosure and put an amp on it, and I played my keyboard through it, and it sounded really good. I graduated from college and went to grad school. I began to realize I don't want to be a sociologist, and decided that I was going to drop out of grad school and start a speaker company. I had about $12,000 that I had inherited from my grandparents. It seemed to make sense to use it to start a business. And so we bought woodworking tools, we bought plywood, and we got plans from the Alltech Lansing Company for building these big voice of the theater speakers that a lot of bands used. We started building those in the garage and just selling them to local bands. In 1980, a friend of mine contacted me and said that he had started a music store in Canton, Oklahoma, and there was a lot of guys that drove pickup trucks. I designed a speaker that fit just in the little wedge shape behind the seat in a single cab pickup truck and sent it over to him. And he called me back a few days later, and you know, the guys love this speaker, we need more. And you know what they call it? And I go, no, what do they call it? And he goes, well, they call it the ass kicker. Back in the early 2000s, we got involved primarily in motocross. We were looking for ways to market our product. We began using the tagline, living loud, and so motocross went right along with that. Arena cross was a natural fit for us, wanting to live loud with motorcycles and the people that enjoy watching that type of events. We're very excited to be involved with Arena Cross and where it's going today.
Steve Strope of Pure Vision Design here with me now. A beautiful 73 Challenger behind us. Now, you literally turn automobiles into automotive art, because when you look at this thing, there is no detail left untouched, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. You can see in the back Schwab on the back of the Challenger. So tell me the story behind that.
The Charles Schwab firm had us build this car to give away at the Charles Schwab Challenge, the Colonial. It's part of the PGA Tour. And so this was awarded to the golf pro that won that tournament. In this case, it was Kevin Na. And Kevin actually gave it to Kenny, his caddy. So Kevin gave it to Kenny, the caddy. Anyway, follow along. So we asked to borrow it, to bring it here to SEMA. And a lot of little details, as you said, but that's kind of one of our things we're known for is little touches. We call it the Easter egg hunt. You find neat things like the lettering you just found that says Schwab instead of Dodge.
And the little touches really tell the story. They connect the dots for people. And something you told me a few moments ago, the color of the seat interior, vanilla shake, and then also some of the interior accents, and it's part of the championship jackets. That is so cool.
Right. On the seat inserts and the door cards, there is the tartan, and it is not like the jacket. It is cut from the actual material, so the jacket matches the interior of the car, which makes sense since the guy who, well, Kevin gave it away, but most golf pros who got the jacket would be matching to the interior. So I try to bring those touches in, and my clients expect that from me, and we tried to do that on this car.
Right, and it is such a beautiful build. Now, you mentioned the color is actually a part of the Aston Martin family. Explain to me why you chose that color.
Well, I wanted to stay with the Schwab corporate colors, which is like a light blue and an off-white or white. So I found this. I use a lot of Aston colors on a lot of my builds, and this is glacier blue, and it's a beautiful, beautiful color.
So pretty up close.
Yeah, and the car wears it well. You never see Challenger. Usually you see them black or orange or purple or something crazy. So it refined the car. So I've been very happy, and of course the client's very happy, and Kenny's really happy. Everyone's happy.
And of course, one of the, in my opinion, very good choices for a finishing touch, the Kicker audio system that you put in the car. What leads you towards Kicker audio?
I've been using Kicker stereo since 1997. I've done posters with Kicker. We've had a long relationship, and they are still the only stereo I put in every single one of our builds.
Just another touch of excellence on this beautiful build, and thank you so much for kind of explaining it to us and walking us through it, and thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Something bad, your hands on the wheel, got a sexy touch. It's enough to make me and my Chevy blush. So long. bodies detected emanating from the heavens. Saucer-shaped objects confirmed all over the world. Unidentified flying K saucers spotted delivering Kicker's amazing new Comp Q subwoofer. Built for precision, built for abuse, built for the future and benefit of mankind. Kicker's new Comp Q woofer leaves audiences astounded and amazed as it reveals subtleties in their favorite music in a way that is sure to make women blush and grown men cry. The surround features Kicker's variable cross-section high-roll design, allowing extended cone travel and excellent cone control. It's firmly attached to the cone, reinforced with our iconic stitching. Betsy Ross would be so proud. The injection molded solo cone and laser X cone brace combined in a single ultra-rigid unit. Venting in the brace relieves performance-robbing back pressure. All this adds up to very low distortion and amazingly clean low bass. The progressive roll blue lace spider adds even more cone control at maximum excursion. The woven tinsel leads are sandwiched between the spider and the lace for durability and long life and to prosper. The spring terminal's heavy-duty square design accepts wires as big as 8-gauge or two 12-gauge wires for multi-sub installations. The high-temp voice coil is rumored to be spun upon the looms of the gods of polyamide fiberglass, along with a reinforced former for high strength and power handling. Now, add colossal magnets, plus a cavernous bump back plate, an extended pole piece created in a single forging, the likes that haven't been seen since the creation of Poseidon's trident. And the result is a driver with superior control and effective heat dissipation that extreme performance demands. The all-new Kicker Comp Q is designed from the ground up to deliver everything you demand from a premium subwoofer. High output, deep, powerful, accurate bass, remarkably small enclosure requirements, stunning good looks, and not to mention the ability to frighten small children when turned up to 11. So there you have it. The all-new Kicker Comp Q subwoofer. Another zenith of innovation and epic majesty from Kicker.
Minute and a half. Hey everybody, it is Tuesday night, coming to you live right here from Stillwater, Oklahoma at the Kicker World Class Headquarters. Hope you guys have had a great week. Hope you guys are looking forward to tonight's show, because I know we really are. Got a great show tonight. I'm your host, John Myers, and also the global trainer for the company. So time to time I'll be bouncing in and out doing the show, and sometimes I'll be gone. In fact, next week I will be in Seattle doing an event up there at the Pac Northwest Electronics Expo. So we will have someone else hosting the show next Tuesday. But as always, we got a great crew in the house. A little mix-up in the personnel, but hey, it's all going to work just fine. We got Amir back behind the camera back there. Tim took a little exposure to you-know-what. We're not going to say that word on the show, but we all can figure out what it is. We got JW in the back. We got Sandy in the house tonight. And, of course, we got Ernie back there. Big Bill Frog is actually taking a little personal vacation. Man, that guy works 24/7. He's really earned it. So he's out and about playing. So, Bill, I'm not sure if you're watching, but, no offense, but I hope you're not. Hope you're enjoying your vacation because you do this all the time. So, once again, great production staff on hand. We had a great show last week. Obviously, we're hoping to have another great show this week. We're going to be talking some fabrication. It kind of looks lonely up here. I seem to have scared away all my co-hosts, so you're going to be stuck with just me tonight. But we're also going to have a great call-in guest that I think you guys are going to really like to hear from and do a little interaction with him. Not to mention, there's a little change up in the set. I got to thank Sandy. She got us some new cushy stools because you're not my age sitting on this stool for 2 hours or more. It gets a little sore. So thank you again for that. I want to make sure you guys, if you like the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Tell your friends. The more like and subscribe we get, the more we're going to be able to do this and have some fun with you guys. So, and as always, we had a great dinner tonight. Always nice to get together with the gang right before the show, and we had a little Chipotle. That was awesome. But thank you, Steve and Becky, for letting us do this. As always, Steve's the founder of Kicker. If you guys are just tuning in, don't know what's going on, we'll give you the rundown. But Steve started the company in 1973, so we're coming up on 50 years. And in fact, I ran into Steve in the hallway just this morning. He's still here 5 days a week and still approves every single product. So we have not lost that Kicker edge, and we keep making it sharper and sharper all the time. But once again, don't forget to register for the giveaways. Sandy, if you want to pull up the laptop for me, if you guys go to kicker.com/umweekly, that's where you can register to win the giveaways that we're going to do. In fact, if you look here, apparently that's not the refresh screen. But as you scroll down, you're going to see what the prizes are going to be for this week. And if you guys have been on the show, you probably can recite them right along with me. Third prize is going to get the EB400s. That's going to be the wireless earbuds. You're also going to get the gray UnMasked t-shirt and the Kicker koozie. Second prize, we're going to upgrade you in the headphone area. We're going to get you the Tabor 2s, which are a Bluetooth over-the-ear headphone that sound awesome. You've also going to get the Kicker gray t-shirt and the UnMasked koozie. And the grand prize, we had a really cool grand prize winner last week. If you guys didn't tune in, every now and then we throw you guys a little bonus. And the grand prize winner last week, not only did they win the Cush NCs and the gray t-shirt and the koozie that we're giving away this week, but the grand prize winner also is getting the amplifier that big old Derek tested last week on the show live, and he's going to autograph that amp and send it back to us. So, every now and then, you never know what we're going to give away. We give away some pretty cool stuff and always have a good time. So as you scroll down, it's going to tell you how to enter the contest, and make sure the more you enter, the more chances you get to win. If you do win, which we're going to announce the winners, we'll actually close the contest at 7:30. We'll announce the winners at about 7:40, actually 8:30. Sorry, can't even tell time anymore. So about 8:30, we're going to close the contest down, and 8:45 we'll announce those winners. And if you are a winner, you're going to watch for an email. Make sure in the response to the email, you let us know your name, address, phone number, shirt size, no P.O. boxes, phone number. And once again, we'll get those prizes sent out to you. So we like to give stuff away. So make sure you do that. And in fact, I'm going to put on my old man glasses here as we keep going so I can read everything that's happening tonight. So don't forget to follow us in all the various forms of social media. Go ahead and leave that laptop up, Sandy. If we click over to the Kicker homepage, that's our website, www.kicker.com. Kind of cool if you guys haven't looked at this, the good old snowman pods. These pods are awesome. In fact, if you guys haven't navigated the website, just to show you how cool it really is. So we're going to go over here to car audio. We're going to scroll down to speakers. Going to click on that. We're going to scroll down all the different varieties of speakers, all the different series, the QS, the KS, the CS, and the DS. We click on the KS series of speakers. So if you guys want to know what's in stock right now, it's pretty easy. Just pretend you're going to order it. As we scroll down, in fact, if you see a link that looks something like this, there's actually a video on the various speakers that you can see that we've put together. So you can learn a little bit more about the products in case you don't know everything you need to know and have some questions. But as I click on one of the products, it's going to pull up the product name, tell you a little bit about it, and right here, it's going to tell you the price of the speakers, $299 USD. It says add to cart. It does not say currently out of stock. So that means the 2504s are in stock and available to ship today. Inventory's always been a challenge, but we're getting better and better. I still can't say electronics are getting better, but if you need speakers, you need subwoofers, you need enclosures, you need CXA amplifiers, KMA amplifiers, KXMA amplifiers. That we've got on hand most of the time, and like I say, we're going to supply your kicker needs. So really cool. Make sure you guys check out that kicker website. All kinds of cool stuff on there. Also, social media. We've got to have a YouTube channel. So a lot of you guys are probably watching us on YouTube right now, and thank you guys again for tuning in. Appreciate you. I know Andy McGill, you're out there. Bobby Burkett. We got Mike Craner. All you guys. Anthony Aho. Just really appreciate all you guys tuning in every week and supporting us. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the show or missed some episodes, you can go back on our Kicker YouTube channel and you can see all the Unmasked weekly shows, different little short segments, different uploads of different products that we've done, over the past couple of years. Got Tech Force videos if you want to learn about the products in detail, how to use them, how to install them, how to test them. We've got pages for that. Technical support tells you how to hook things up. So we've got a lot of great videos in here, and just if you go to the Kicker Vlog, that's just all kinds of various videos that aren't really specifically one subject, but people out and about in the field doing cool stuff with the product and having a lot of fun. So make sure if you guys need any help, need any assistance, look up that information on our Kicker YouTube channel. Or if you want, if you're still not getting the information you need, do not forget to email us at support@kicker.com. We've got 4 guys up there that are great at answering questions, and they'll get right back to you. Usually if it's overnight, they'll get back to you the next day right away to get your questions answered. So along with YouTube and, of course, the web base, we've got our Kicker Unmasked Instagram page. So this is a really cool page, and you're going to see a lot of different little links here. In fact, as I scroll down, I usually try to pick out one of these cool links to open up just for fun. And I kind of, want to pull this one up here real quick. This is a fabrication show. We're going to talk about, different ways to do some fabrication. And this is something I almost included in the show, and we might do a little bit more on another show if you guys want. Make sure you make comments and let us know what you think. But this is a very simple type of fabrication. I would assume that's a piece of, plywood or MDF, back behind the vinyl here, and it's just cut into a shape and then wrap some vinyl over it. So if you're not, familiar with fiberglass or, resin or, just even a little bit of Bondo can go a long way with just a little bit of wood to put underneath the panel to give it some character so it doesn't look like a speaker just bolted to a flat panel. And that's kind of the thing. Make it your own, have some fun with it, do some experimentation, try some different things. But what a great little picture of this. In fact, there's the whole door panel. And it looks very OEM, looks very original. But like I say, there's a little bit of fabrication. You see that little gray panel added at the bottom, but it just really gives it a nice, stylish, clean look. So that's one way to do some very simple fabrication to make your system kind of personalized. So don't forget to check out the Kicker Instagram page, all kinds of cool things. In fact, I'm going to pull up one more because I thought this one was pretty cool too. I really like the combination of the black and blue. And this is, if I remember right, this is a Jeep Trackhawk. And with that black and blue interior, I mean, this thing looks bad to the bone. What a cool install. It might be simple, and clean, but that's what we like to see. So going back to Facebook. So if you go to Kicker Facebook's page, this is the main Kicker Audio Facebook page. As always, you scroll down, there's photos, there's videos, there's all kinds of cool things. Here's some fabrication stuff from Mark. If you haven't figured out by now, Mark is going to be our guest. We're going to bring him online here in just a little bit, have some fun with Mark. But, if you want to know more about what's going on in the Kicker community, we always like to go ahead and pull this up, go to more, click on events. And as I mentioned before, I will actually be in Portland and Seattle next week for that Pac Northwest Electronics Expo. And that's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys are up in that area, check it out because we do a good training. It's probably about half a mile from the airport, so it's real close. It's almost walking distance. But as always, if you look at the events that, we're posting up on site, I mean, we have base wars everywhere. So, we got all kinds of base wars. We got them come up Friday. We got them come up Saturday, a couple different locations on Saturday. We've also got the Midwest Jeep Fest going on in Guthrie, Oklahoma. So if you're a Jeep fanatic and want to come to Oklahoma, or if you're already in Oklahoma, check out the Jeep Fest. That's put on by John Vance, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram. That's going to be a really good time. All kinds of good, demonstrations and, things you can do, and just to have some fun with your Jeep brethren. Get out there and tear things up a little bit. And don't forget about all the base wars. And of course, Slamology is coming up. I'll actually be at Slamology in Indianapolis about a month from right now. So hopefully you guys can get out and see that, because that is another incredible show. So we can't forget about the Kicker Club, also talking about Facebook. Good old Andy McGill, the world's largest kicker group, and we're looking right now 13,200 members plus. So Andy's done a great job with its website. In fact, Andy's online if you want to ask him any questions. He's always good to respond. But Anthony's done such a great job with this website, and we try to follow it a lot. A bunch of people here in the company, me and Ken and Joe and Ernie. You'll see us reply to a lot of the questions answered when we get time. So you never know who's going to answer your questions. There's some really good information. So if you're a little stumped about what's going on with Kicker, what you're trying to do, or how to hook something up, or you're just unsure on what might be the best product or application for your particular needs, feel free to jump into the Kicker Club and, post a feed up there, and you're going to get a lot of responses. And I hope there are a lot of good responses. I can't promise that, because, it's all random. It's all live. Kind of like tonight, as we are coming live. You never know what's going to happen, never know what's going to come off the show, or, what I'm going to screw up. Don't forget about that. But also, you got Living Loud with Andy. Once again, Andy does his own live show, and that's a little different than what we do here. He just has a lot of good subjects and a lot of two-way conversations, so it's really a great feed to listen to if you're driving. Put it on in the background, or if you're doing something around the house or working on a car, go ahead and put that on and listen, because always a lot of great information from Andy and the guys. So that being said, I'm going to take off my reading glasses here so I can see the screen. We got a good question. Anybody posted anything cool that we need to talk about there, Sandy, that we need to pull up? Or I always catch them off guard when I do this. So here we are. First question is from Ignacio Gill. Question: hello, by the way, I really love your quad box, but feel like it might be too heavy for my handicap wheelchair van, including my wheelchair and the wheelchair lift. What do you recommend? Something with the same amount of power, or even more than the quad box, but 1/3 of the size? Now that's going to be really interesting, because obviously we do have the L7X coming out here, hopefully really soon. We still don't have an exact date on it, but that's going to be one way. But that is a really heavy speaker. Now when it comes to getting output and sound, there's basically two key areas, actually three if you think about it. One is surface area of the speakers, the type and size of the enclosure, and the power that you put to it. So there really are three areas to getting a ton of bass in a vehicle, and unfortunately none of those are very light. So talking about a wheelchair equipped van, now what I might suggest is go ahead and do the quad box, put a 2400 one on it, or a combination of a couple CXA 1200 ones. What you can do is you can actually get some suspension enhancing devices that are available. Summit Racing, your local auto parts store, they've got spring boosters, there's airbags. Ride Tech, they sell even for Ford trucks and things, for hauling trailers, they sell airbags that you can put on there. And if you go to the extreme amount, we did a van. In fact, Gary Biggs, who is a unbelievable fabricator, now he's a rep, but he also still lives in Tulsa. Fantastic guy. He actually built a van for our Venezuela rep down there, and it had 33 XBL 12s. Now, if you remember those old XBL 12s, they were a cast basket 12-inch speaker. 33 of those in one big fiberglass dome, not to mention, I forgot how many batteries. I think there were 16 or 20 batteries in the thing, and then all the amplifiers combined. We actually had to put 10 leaf springs on the back of that van to actually get it to ride and handle okay. We had to reinforce the front brakes on it because the van was so heavy, and it was still unsafe to drive it over 35 miles an hour. You start driving the thing and start to wander left and right. It was really kind of scary, but a couple of our guys, Tracy Foch and Dave Glasgow, actually drove that from here to Florida so it could be put on a boat and shipped down to Venezuela. So yeah, that was a pretty hair-raising trip. I can't even imagine how scary that would have been after just a few times I drove that van. But there are always ways to beef up the suspension to make it better. So don't sell your base short just because of weight. It can be done and it can be handled. Any other good questions? There we are, After Hours Customs, the way we like to do it. So it was an honor to see y'all use my photo of the pod I made for the KS275. So that's probably the picture we saw in the preview. That is a really neat little pod, neat little grill. And we're not going to get quite that involved in Fabrication Night. We're going to teach you some of the really basics and not necessarily all the ways to do it, or the only way, or it might not even be the best way. It's just one of the ways I've done it for years and years, and I think it's something that you guys can grab onto and really learn how to do some of this fabrication pretty simply. So True Mark Majin, I think that is, can you wire the Kicker RT boxes in parallel? The shallow mount ones with the resonator, or we call it a reflex subwoofer or a passive radiator. You can always wire them in parallel. In fact, I'm not sure if you're talking about 2 boxes wired in parallel. Now they're a 2 ohm load as you buy them, so you put them in parallel. That's going to give you a 1 ohm load. Now what you guys probably don't know is that that woofer actually has a dual voice coil 4 ohm driver wired in parallel inside the enclosure. If you want, you could even take that driver out of that enclosure and switch it to series wiring. So by putting the 2 4 ohm coils in series, you'll get an 8 ohm load. Put that in parallel with another one, which you did exactly the same. That now gives you a 4 ohm load. So with the parallels, you can either get a 1 ohm load or a 4 ohm load. Just with the 4 ohm load, it's a little bit more work because you got to unscrew the woofers and change the wiring up a little bit. But it's not difficult. In fact, once again, look to the website, look to the videos, or if you got some questions, get on the Kicker Club and ask, and we'll be sure to help you out. So, great question, but yes, you can. You can wire pretty much anything in series or parallel. It's just going to change the impedance. Hey, Kicker fans, hope everyone's having a good week. From Lori Boyard, Lori in the house. Lori, we are having a good week. I do know, unfortunately, here in Oklahoma, there's some people that are not having a good week. We had some pretty severe storms roll through the area last night. In fact, we were sitting in the house, kind of, huddled in the bathroom. Don't have the storm shelter yet in the new house, but, I guess we're going to have to get one. All of our neighbors have one, but we don't want to go out in the rain because you don't want to get wet, when you're trying to save your life. But we had a tornado that touched down about 15 miles from our house. And unfortunately, I want to give a shout out to Ty and Stacy Burns, good friends of ours. Ty used to be a deputy with the Sheriff's Department here in Stillwater. They had some severe damage at their house from his Facebook posts. I mean, wiped out a couple motorcycles, a garage, tree fell on his SUV, tore up the house, the garage, some pretty severe damage. So, shout out to you guys. Hope all is well with the family. And if you need any help, let us know. We're always here for you, Ty, and always thinking about you. So be safe with that. Not to mention, we got more storms coming tomorrow. Yay, welcome to Oklahoma. So you always have that kind of fun out there. So Chris Austin, is Kicker ever coming out with a DSP that the end user can tune? We already have. That's what we call the Key 200.4 and the Key 500.1. So this is a DSP that is self-tuning. It's auto-tuning. All you really need to do on the 200.4 is you need to know where to put a microphone, and you need to know how to play a paint noise signal. And it does everything for you, and it does a fantastic job. Now, the 501, the subwoofer amplifier, is a little bit different. It actually uses the signal coming out of the radio to restore that bass response, because most of your factory radios are giving you 12 dB per octave roll-off on the low end, especially if they don't have a subwoofer, just protecting their speakers. So if you want to get all the bass that the recording had to begin with, you've got to restore that signal. So the Key 500.1 will do that. It will restore up to 12 dB per octave. It's got equalization compensation built right in. And of course, the Key 204, when it goes into its DSP testing mode, it adjusts the output level for all 4 channels independently. It adjusts the EQ independently for all 4 channels, up to 40 bands of equalization. And it does time alignment on all 4 channels. So that really is the easiest DSP to set up, the kind you just have a microphone, press a button, and let it go and do its thing. But so should be pretty easy. And like I say, any more questions, we've always got new things coming down the pike. And if there are any type of products you guys want to see, let us know. We're always looking for, the next new thing, or, things we can do to fulfill your needs. So if you have suggestions of things you like, or you think, even if you don't like something, let us know. I mean, if we don't know you don't like it, we'll just keep making it and throwing it out on the market. So don't feel free to let us know if you don't like something. We take all that under advisement. That's one of the reasons we have been in business for 50 years, because we do listen to you guys. In fact, just to explain how much we do listen, we have features on some of our products that I absolutely hate, but we do it anyway. One of them is called Bass Boost. That's pretty much the voice coil eliminator. So if you don't use that properly, it can be a real challenge to keep speakers intact in your vehicle. So yeah, that's one of those things that I wish we would remove from the products, but we continue to put it in because you guys continuously like that. So great. So we're just really dragging on here. Adir, I can't pronounce that. Too many consonants in there. Bashem, what are the pros and cons of wiring at 2 ohms or less? So there really aren't pros or cons when it comes to wiring impedance for the most part. I mean, as you go lower impedance, sometimes you can lower the damping factor, which is the ability of the amplifier to control the movement of the speaker. But the pros and cons really come when you mate that impedance up to your amplifier. So if your impedance is too low for the amplifier, say your amplifier is stable at 2 ohms and you wire it down to 1 ohm, the amplifier is going to shut off. It's going to go in protection. If the amplifier is stable at 2 ohms and you wire it to 4 ohms, it's never going to shut off. In fact, it's going to run very cool. It's not going to pull a lot of current, but it's also not going to produce as much power. You're going to have about a 3 decibel drop in output because it's going to produce half the power at 4 ohms that it does 2 ohms. So that's the only pros or cons. There really isn't an audible sonic difference in the impedances. Now, there's certain people will say that, well, I guess I should say also that, if you wire everything in series, if you have one coil that burns out, everything shuts off. If you have it wired in parallel and you have one coil that, intensely breaks or something, you still have the other coil providing some load. You're going to lose some output, but it's still going to play. So great questions. So talking about questions, let's go to the tech group, the guys, like I tell you, that get these questions every week. We got 3 questions here. I'm going to read those and answer them. And as always, got some interesting questions here. So first one that we get from Jacob Lucky, which runs our questions department up at support@kicker.com. I have a Kicker CXA 1200.1 installed on my car with 2 of your comp R12s. Thank you. It's been installed for about a month. The amplifier started going into protection mode at high volumes, then it started going into protection at a progressively lower volume, and now it's in protection mode no matter what. I can't afford to bring it to a shop and I don't have access to a multimeter. What could the problem be, and are there any troubleshooting steps I can follow without any tools? Well, actually, yes, there are. We kind of talked about this last week, and basically, go to the chain and break the chain and see if the problem goes up or down the chain from wherever you broke it. So the first thing that I would do if I didn't have tools and I just ran across this, somebody in the parking lot or a buddy of mine that needed help and he didn't have any tools, is I'd tell you first disconnect all the speaker wires. So by disconnecting all the speaker wires, you're going to watch the protection light. If the amp does not go into protection, it's not the amplifier. So next, if the amplifier is staying out of protection with no speakers connected, start connecting the speakers one by one, and eventually you're going to get one of the wires you connect that's going to put that amplifier into protection. That's going to be your problem, either the wiring going to that speaker or that speaker itself. So it is possible that the voice coil in the speaker has started to rub, and it was shorting out at high power and something's happened. It's got, off center or something, and it's rubbing more and more, and finally got to the point where it just completely shorted out. That is possible. So that's one way you can test things without any special tools. Something else you can do if you want to test the speakers themselves, get yourself a 9-volt battery. It's just a simple, Everready, Duracell, whatever battery you happen to like, and take that battery and touch the positive and negative speaker leads to the positive and negative of the battery. And if it's a woofer, you're going to see the speaker move slightly, but it's going to make a little thump. Now, if you have the polarity connected to the battery correctly, it's going to push out. If you have the polarity backwards, the speaker's going to pull back in. And you can do that with coaxes too. I just don't recommend doing that with a tweeter because there's not any protection if you're just going to wire a tweeter up directly to a battery like that. DC is what kills those really small speakers. So that's one way to test the outputs of speakers. And in fact, the old days, when we first started doing installation, didn't have all the wiring diagrams like we do now. That was the way you tested to find out what the speaker wires were with a 9-volt battery. You just start testing, a group of wires till you heard something pop and make noise. You figure out what corner of the vehicle it came from, and those 2 wires controlled that speaker. So great question, and hope that helps you and hope you figure it out. Now, if it is the amplifier, don't forget reach out to our customer service department, get that amplifier back in here, and we got a great warranty department. If it's not under warranty, those guys get things in and out in less than 48 hours, so they are awesome. Moving right along, because I'm really dragging this out tonight. Sorry about that, guys. I have a 2021 Honda Ridgeline, great little truck, with a CXA 800.1 power and a single comp R12. Well, the R12s are popular tonight, at least in the questions. I accidentally unplugged the bass knob while I was listening to music. Now the amp won't produce any sound. I notice if I pull the cable out halfway, the amp plays really loud. Can you offer any insight? Well, one of the things you need to make sure, and with that 1/8-inch cable that plugs into the back of that remote subwoofer level control, you make sure that you got it plugged in all the way. I mean, it may look like it's plugged in all the way, but they snap in really tight. So make sure that's done. It could have happened depending on how you pull the cable out of the knob. If you caught your foot in it or just, your hand or whatever, it's possible if you yanked it at an angle, you could have broken the contacts inside of the knob itself. So that is a possibility that it is a knob problem. So once again, the substitution method that I would suggest in troubleshooting is go to the amplifier, disconnect the 1/8-inch cord from the amplifier. Your amplifier should play at the gain that it's set at, should work just fine. Next thing I would do is replace the 1/8-inch cable. So go to your local Walmart or Lowe's or wherever you get cables, or if you happen to have one around, you can get a 3.5 cable, and it doesn't have to be a very long one. Take the knob even back to the amplifier, plug it in right there, and make sure the cable's seated properly, and test it that way. And if it still doesn't work with it plugged in that way, you might have damaged the knob itself. And once again, reach out to customer service, or support at kicker.com, and we can probably find a way to get you a base knob to get that thing all fixed up. Question number 3 tonight. I have one of your Kiss Lock 2 LOCs in my 22 F-150. I have tapped into the rear door signals, and the Kiss Lock is grounded, and I verified that I'm getting DC offset at the input side of the Kiss Lock 2, but it has no 12-volt output on the blue wire. What could be wrong? Well, it sounds like you've done all the testing you need to do, and it is rare, but occasionally, products do fail. I would think, if it was me, I would try replacing the Kiss Lock 2, because if you confirmed you have 12 volts DC or DC offset at the speaker input on the Kiss Lock 2, and you've got the black wire grounded, you're still not getting 12 volts output, there's probably something wrong with that Kiss Lock 2. So once again, support at kicker.com or call up and ask for customer service. So great questions there, guys. And like I say, it's always fun to answer these on air. And like I say, if you guys get any, feel free to send them in. So now we're going to go to that part of the night that I like to have some fun with. And we're going to show some pictures here of some installs that you guys have sent in. And also, we can't forget the other feature that we've started just not too long ago. So I'm going to pull this up real quick on the laptop. Then I'm going to ask Sandy to pull it up. I've got so much going on my laptop, I can't even see what I'm doing anymore. So let's see, here we are. And we need to go to 523. All right. Why don't you go ahead and pull up my laptop if you wouldn't mind there, Sandy, and thank you for doing so. This is from Mike Craner. He sent these in. This is a really neat install, and not showing any favoritism here, but every now and then you get one of those, group of install pictures. You really want to show, all the vehicle to get the whole picture. So they've taken a lot of pride in this little Ford Transit van. I've got, of course, all the LED lighting, back behind to make the thing look like a green monster. But a heck of a wall of bass in here. And if I remember right, I think those are the 41 L710s. So there are 4 of those in vented enclosures. And Mike said this thing absolutely hammered. And of course, with those vents coming out right behind your head, it's going to knock all your hair off. Then you're going to look like me if you're not too careful. Flush the little QSS tweeter right into the sail panel up there, on the A-pillar. So great little, job putting the tweeter in. And under the floor, underneath the box, in fact, you see the Q-Class amplifiers and the crossovers nicely recessed and flushed in. But if you take that off, there you've got the JY power battery. You've got your IQI, which is the Bluetooth control for the amplifiers, and you're fusing the distribution. So great work on that. And here's something else I really like, and you don't see enough of this. I mean, not only does it have the IQIRC, mounted into the dash, but I would assume if I were a betting man that is a volt gauge right to the right of that to monitor the voltage. Some of you guys never really know what your voltage is, especially with some of these bigger systems. So always keep a good volt gauge, handy. I mean, it's great if you got a test meter, but who wants to get that thing out and hook it up every time? But it never hurts to have a voltmeter so you can see what the system's doing. And just remember, these voltmeters do not have a really fast response, unless you've got, a flute meter or something that will measure, and lock onto the minimum voltage. So even though it might say, 13 or 14 volts in peak, draws, like really hard bass notes, and you can actually drop quite a bit of voltage and the voltage gauge will not read it. So it's just generally a rule of thumb. So it'll tell you, hey, if you're running down the road and the thing starts getting around 12 or, under 12 volts, turn the system down, let it charge up. So something else they did pretty cool, they took one of the speaker grills off one of our older speakers and they cut the factory grill off the door and added this. So nice way to customize a door panel. And of course you got the QSS mid-range there in the bottom. So great work on that. Mike and Jesse, like I say, fantastic looking vehicle. So that's one group of pictures. We're going to keep going here. So actually, that was not the right picture I just clicked on. I need to go back up one more. Sorry, operator area. So as always, we like to see all kinds of different installs. And here we got a 6.5 and 8-inch pair of marine speakers mounted in a little golf car with one of our media centers. Now, once again, all these speakers are marine certified, so they can be left out in the open any day long. But that golf car looks a little nice that it's probably not going to be left outside all the time. But very simple, very clean install. And this is one of those that, I'd like to see more. Do we have a subwoofer in there? So if you guys are sending pictures in, that we might want to use on the show, make sure you send a couple pictures of the install so we can see everything. Because it is really cool to see the whole package, not just, one little segment of it. So this next picture is really cool. And in fact, we are going to pull this one up here. Actually, we could have done that. It's on our Instagram page. So if you go to the Kicker Instagram page and scroll down to about 3 or 4 rows in the middle, you're going to see several pictures of this vehicle. And it is an older, I'm guessing it's an older Lincoln or something, I can't tell, but really, really nice, clean install in this vehicle. So great job on that one. And I guess I should probably go back and tell you, this one was submitted by Bobby Burkett. So I'm not sure if you did that one, Bobby. And of course, this one I didn't have any information on who submitted the picture. Also, this obviously is an Audi. So great, Comp Q subwoofer. And here again, I always tell you guys how much I like the use of different materials and the backlighting and the fact that you've got the Audi logo here and it looks like it might even be suede, and if it is, that was a really difficult wrap to get that done. I think that'd be just about impossible. But great looking install, very clean, very sharp. So once again, thank you guys for that. And this one I just came across today. Talk about a truck that's going to pound. You got to have a lot of room behind the seats if you're going to put a Comp Q 12 back there. So in a vented enclosure. But here again, just a great clean install, and I want to thank you guys for that. But that being said, we're going to go to this wonderful section that if you're a car audio installer and these are pictures of your installs, you have failed, miserably failed. Seek professional help, counseling, installation, whatever. But we're going to talk specifically about grounding problems today. And we look at this one, let's talk about you want to ground it to the best grounding spot possible, usually the frame, or make sure you scrape all the metal off. But not only is this wire just wrapped around that terminal, you guys, have you figured out what that is? That's the jack for the vehicle. It's not even attached to the vehicle. It may be making a little bit of contact where the paint has been scratched off, but I would imagine going down the road, that may actually bounce and lose ground connection. So yeah, that is a fail in my book on how to properly ground an amplifier. Next one. And I will say, I personally took this picture, and there's a couple reasons why I took this picture. one, obviously, the ground connection of this is really, really, really bad. I mean, it's not even under the bolt. I mean, it's just not good. And if you notice, the wire is actually looped under the gasket. Well, that's a potential to cut through the wire, especially if that was a positive wire. That would be real bad because now you got a short and got a fire. But something else kind of interesting is when I was in South Africa, they were specifically talking about this amplifier right here. They kept talking about this 6,500 watt amplifier that was the equivalent of like $300 in US money. And we finally got to see this vehicle, and I actually got a little information. I researched it. The 6500W Max is the model name of the amplifier. So they want you to think it's 6,500 watts. Well, that was the model of the amplifier. It was actually a 200 watt by 2 amplifier. I would even guess it would do that. But so, yeah, just kind of some false advertising there. But it was, of course, down in South Africa, and, there's some really, really good installers down there that really do some good things. And obviously, this was actually in a taxi that they put big systems in to draw customers because all the taxis down there are privately owned. It's really kind of fun. It's really a neat visit if you ever happen to get down to Johannesburg or wherever. But here again, another really awful ground. I'm not even sure if that's like a molding clip, and I think the scratches were there just from the clip itself. But guys, make sure you get really good quality grounds. And with that being said, let's go ahead and pull this up. Here's the good, better, best. Obviously, that's not too bad. Advanced, you put a couple more screws in it. Oh boy, and he scratched the paint off. I always try to bolt through the vehicle chassis or the frame to make sure I get good ground, scratch the paint off, and then down here, God level. Yeah, how many screws can you put on one wire? Not to mention the fact that it's a red wire, so that might be confusing. But a lot of fun, like I say. Hope you guys had some fun with that. So tonight we're going to talk installations. We've got a really special guest, and we've talked a couple times at CES, and we talked with Mark and talked about bringing him on the show, and he jumped all for it. And like I say, Mark has got some really cool stuff he does online. So let's go ahead and bring Mark online. I think I see him hanging out there in the background. Mark, welcome to Kicker Unmasked Live. And welcome to all these knuckleheads that are tuning into the chat room. You've probably been watching all those. I have no idea what they've been saying. I've been too busy up here. But thanks for joining us.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Good to be here.
I bet a lot of the guys out there probably never seen you live. They've just seen you on video.
Nah, I mean, Brian and I don't know if you're familiar, but Brian Schmidt and I of Mobile Solutions, we do a live show together called School of Fab. We just started that probably 4 or 5 months ago, and it's once a month. Yep. So yeah, so we've been focusing, strictly more on the fabrication side of things, being as it's called School of Fab, obviously. So
well,
yeah, it's been fun.
I think of two better guys to do it than you guys. That's for darn sure.
Thanks.
So out of curiosity, obviously you do some absolutely incredible videos and very informative. How long have you been doing this, Mark?
Oh man, it's been a while. I mean, since high school, since I can remember, and that was, back in like 2003. So it's been coming up on
high school for me
years.
was 84.
There you go. I wasn't even born yet. So.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for 19 years. So that's awesome. And it definitely shows in the videos. And what made you, how did you get into car audio fabrication, just the whole car audio world?
Yeah, I always kind of had the engineering mindset for everything. And when I started in high school, it was always the competition side of things and wanting to outdo your friends. And for me, I wanted the install not only to sound good and, be loud, but also to look like it was part of the vehicle, look like it fit, or look flashy, depending on, what the goal of the build was. But yeah, just combining that engineering mind along with those mindsets for like a goal of a vehicle install just kind of led into the high-end fabrication.
That's kind of interesting that we're talking 19 years apart, because I graduated in 84. It was kind of the same for me. It was just you wanted to make it look, to make it work, and I didn't know anyone that did that back then. And fabrication back then, was a whole different world than it is now. We didn't have any kits, any harnesses. You cut every dash, you cut every harness. It was, fabrication, that didn't even exist back then. It was pretty much bolted in any way it's possible and make it work. But, a lot of fun. I actually had a system that was in a '66 Mustang, and you talk about wanting to have a nice system. I had a booster, a Spark-O-Matic booster under the dash. I had a Ward's Airline AM/FM 8-track under the dash, and I had a Realistic, which was Radio Shack brand, 4x10 in the dash of the '66 Mustang, and two Spark-O-Matic 6x9s in the rear. And people thought I was nuts. I mean, I couldn't believe I spent so much time and effort and money on a car audio system, and hey, it worked off. I mean, this is what I've been doing all my life. Like you said, in high school, that's kind of where you start. And if you're lucky enough, like we have been, you can turn it into a career. You don't have to have a real job. So we can actually make money doing this and have fun doing it.
Yeah, and the other, the interesting thing you mentioned is, installation techniques and fabrication techniques are always changing along, of course, with all the gear, all the new technology. And I think right now we're actually in like a really interesting era where there's a big transition in the technology side of fabrication, where we're seeing a lot more automation used, CNC machines, lasers, 3D printing. And I think like the next big thing is going to be, as 3D scanning becomes more and more accessible for not only consumers but professionals as well, we're going to see more and more of that incorporated, where we're 3D scanning the interior of a vehicle, and then you guys manufacturers, obviously you have the ability with your R&D departments to have these sort of things, but I think we're going to start seeing that more at the shop level, and like I said, even the consumer level, where people are using a 3D scanner and then they're fabricating with 3D printers and CNC machines. And of course there's always going to still be some of that analog skill set involved with how everything comes together, but it's definitely an exciting time. So
yeah, it really is. In fact, I'm actually really jealous because my heyday of obviously car audio install was way back in the day, and I've missed all this new technology, and I really want to learn, but I'm so busy doing we've got a great CNC in back, and I just haven't had any time to actually get back there and mess with it. So if you guys get a chance, especially some of you younger guys, learn CNC, learn programming, because you can use that for all kinds of things. And the stuff we do with 3D printers, one of our guys, actually Ken, that you guys have seen on the show from time to time, he just had some little rings printed for a little mid-range and tweeter for his pillars, and we put those in a couple weeks ago. And it's just it's amazing to me that you can draw something in a computer and another machine will spit out a finished product, and you incorporate it in and it works. It's just really kind of fun and kind of cool.
Yeah, there's definitely, of course, a little bit more to it than that behind the scenes, but for sure. And we're here to get you up to speed too. Another plug for Brian over at Mobile Solutions. They just did the MasterTech Expo. And man, that event went off without a hitch. It was super fun. If you guys want to see what that event was about, I have a full review video on my channel that you guys can check out. But that whole event was focused, high-end fabrication, technology, CNC machines, everything. It was awesome.
Yeah, I actually talked to several people and a couple of our reps, so that is absolutely the best car audio event. We'll just call it an event. That they had ever been to, so very beneficial. Awesome. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make that one, but we will be there next year, from what I'm told by Jeremy and the guys. It's something that we really want to get out and do, and just the whole timing of COVID just didn't work out for us. So
yeah, we were bummed. We were bummed, man. I was looking forward to seeing you guys, but definitely next year. It's gonna be fun.
Well, we're coming in force. We're bringing the semi. We're bringing the XRV.
There we go.
So you keep mentioning your video. Why don't you tell the guys where they can find your videos, what your sites are, so they can tune into that. And guys, I really, really encourage you to go watch these videos and just learn, because when you learn from the best, you're never going to be disappointed with the results, unless it's your own doing that did it. But yeah, always learn from the best. And Mark, you've got some of the best videos I've seen.
Wow, thank you.
Without wasting a lot of time, and there's so many bad video, instructions out there. Oh God, just try to do a computer program and look up, how to do something in like Adobe or something, and you'll learn, what. And these are the people that make videos,
yeah,
and they can't even produce their own good videos.
Yeah, right. Yeah, some of my videos back in the day, especially, are a little bit more cringy. But hey, I was learning along the way, so
it's an evolution.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But so the YouTube channel is youtube.com/car audio fabrication. And then also same for the websites, caraudiofabrication.com. And the videos are really focused on helping you learn how to design, build, and install your dream car audio system. That's kind of my tagline there. And what I really like about the channel, and a lot of guys have brought up, now that I've been doing this for like 10 years, what's cool about the channel is you can go back and you can look at some of my early videos. They're all still there. And you can see, like, I was literally down on the ground, like, on this really inexpensive router table, with just a couple of router bits. And I was using body filler to flush in templates and to make, like, negative and, male and female shapes. And it's just interesting to kind of see that progression that, anyone can kind of pick this up and start, with more entry-level gear and then kind of advance their skill set as they go. So you can kind of see that progression in the videos throughout the years as, like, I advance my skill set and learn more and more, about custom fabrication.
And that's, the testament that, everyone needs to take away from it. It's always about learning, making yourself better every time. And, we don't just jump into something and know everything. I mean, you got to practice. And I've always said, if you do something a lot, you do something every day, or you do a lot of effort on something, you may not be the best at it, but you're going to get pretty good. So it's all about repetition and learning better ways to do things. And like I say, we're going to do some little information on how I do kick panels and done them from the past, and it's not necessarily the best way. It's definitely not the only way. There's I encourage you guys, take from, all different fabricators, take a little bit from here and there, and what you're comfortable with, and put it together and make it your own and make it easy for, what you're trying to do.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about fabrication is, there's no one right answer. There's many different ways to do things, and, some ways may be more efficient, but might not get the best end result, and vice versa. So yeah, there's definitely, multiple different ways to go about things.
Oh yeah, and different tools, different materials, and there's always opinions, and and like I say, if you like the results and you did it yourself, be proud of it. That's one of the things I like going to shows, and people showing off what they have. And I remember when I owned my store, someone would come in looking for an amplifier, and it's like, well, what kind of speakers are you going to hook it up to? It's like, well, I don't want to tell you because I didn't buy them from you. It's like, no. What do you got? Let's go see it. It's like, really? You want to go see my car? They're proud of it, and you guys should be too. Mm-hmm. If you work on something, it's nice to show it off, and other people will appreciate it too. And I always try to take ideas from all different things and mix them up in a different way. There's limitless ideas and ways to do things, and like we said, there is no right or wrong. Sometimes there's faster and there's better, and there's good tips you can learn and things you should and shouldn't do from some people, that you don't make the really costly mistakes right up front.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like probing airbags with a test light. I have not done that, but
don't do that.
Yep, I've known people that have set off airbags in vehicles, and that's never a good thing. So just use a little bit of common sense with some of these things, and have some fun, and be creative. I mean, that's what this is all about. And you were talking about the different goals to achieve in an install. I've always said there's 3 different types of install. There's the basic install that just get everything in and make it work. There's the flashy install, which used to see lights, motors, painted fiber, all that kind of stuff. And motors, yeah. Actually, we did motorization way back in the day. You don't see much of that anymore. Some of the stuff comes in style and then it goes out again. It's like bell-bottom pants. But obviously, and the third one is stealth, which is the one that's really the hardest. I mean, in my opinion, would you think that stealth is the hardest to hide everything, to make it look like it wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like some of these guys in the industry are so good at the stealth aspect of things.
Oh,
like
yeah.
You'll look at a build and you'll be like, what'd you do?
Yeah.
And that's like the true, like to them, that's like the highest honor. Like you can't even tell, but it sounds amazing. So.
And you're exactly right. I mean, when you have to ask them what they did, I mean, car builders are the same way.
Yeah.
They'll spend, a year or 2 years modifying the body of a car, and people will see it and they'll instantly know what it is and not know all the work that's been done to it to, sometimes to make it look right. The manufacturer, took some shortcuts, or, maybe, stamping this panel a certain way, wasn't really cost effective, so they did it, another way. But it's just interesting to go back and use your hands and be able to do that, because in my opinion, especially over the last couple of years, people have lost the desire and the ability to do things. Everything's, Amazon and Walmart, and it's, really empowering to yourself when you say, hey, I built that, I did that. So, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, the other thing too, with the shops that do the high-end stuff that's more stealthy, that kind of the feedback I've got from a lot of them, and the reason that they also like, my channel and the videos, is that you get to see the behind-the-scenes effort that goes into some of those things that, when it's done, it just looks OEM, but when you actually see the process, you're like, okay, there's a ton of value there. That was really engineered from the ground up, and, step XYZ was all applied, and there's a ton of time there and the material costs. So it does add a lot of value to what we do as well.
And that's one of the things we used to do with, our show vehicles in the past. And, maybe some of you guys still do this. And I've seen car builders, they do what's called a build book, which shows you every step, just a whole book. And there's some really good ones out there. I mean, some professionally done, build books. But I remember, being at a car show and having a build book of, one of the cars that I worked on, and this guy's looking through it, and he went over and grabbed his, I can't say wife or girlfriend, I'm hoping it was one of the two, but grabbed his, come over here and look at this. This is what I'm telling you, this is what it takes to do this. You think it's so simple. So,
yeah.
Just really put it in literally, I'd say black and white, but they were color pictures. But, the behind the scenes work is, crazy. And that's, what we're going to do here in a little bit. I'm going to show a video, for you guys and talk about, how I did the kick panel that's here in front of you. And I actually set up a time-lapse camera and just let it go just so you can kind of see the process. And the camera took one picture every 5 seconds. And the kick panel we have up here, I call them 2-day kick panels. They don't have to be 2 days. But what I like to do in the process, I actually get to one step in the resin and I actually let it sit overnight. We'll talk about why we do that when we get into the video. But these are going to be pretty simple, quick, easy to build kick panels. You don't need a lot of special tools. And it's funny how you were talking about routers and stuff like that, because up until about 15 years ago, I didn't know what a router was. I mean, I was doing everything literally by hand with a jigsaw and But
there you go. I mean, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do.
Yep. If that's all the tools you have. So
is that? Sorry, real quick. Is that pod? Is it wrapped or is it painted?
Yeah, it's wrapped.
Nice.
And I actually, in the video, there's actually a couple things that went wrong, and this is one of the things I always stress to people. When you're first learning to do stuff, and even if you're not, like I say, I've been doing this for a little while, and things still happen. Don't get just all dejected and don't just get really frustrated. I mean, sometimes there's really easy ways to fix things. And sometimes you got to figure out where your battle wants to be, because I'm going to show you some things on these kick panels that, if they were visible would be a problem, but they're completely out of sight and no one will ever see it. And it has to do with the seam on the back of this for the vinyl. But like I say, pick your battles, guys, and figure out what's important and, do a little practice and don't expect to jump right in and do it perfect the first time, especially when it comes to wrapping vinyl. That's going to take a little bit of skill and a little bit of work, and we'll talk a little bit briefly about, wrapping these panels. But it's kind of fun. I've been doing this style of kick panel for many years now, and it's fairly simple. You don't need a lot of special tools. In fact, we're going to show how we actually build the rings for this, and you could probably almost do all this with a jigsaw if you really had to. You don't need 5-axis or 3-axis CNC machines or 3D printers. I mean, you can do it pretty much with very simple hand tools.
Yeah.
We can talk about tools. And by the way, the registration for tonight's giveaway prices is going to end in about 5 minutes, guys. So you got 5 more minutes to get your registration in. This might be a pretty tough question. Then again, it might be really easy. I get it both ways. What is your favorite tool, Mark?
The favorite tool? The router.
Your favorite tool?
The router, of course. I mean, the router is so versatile. For maybe there's some guys out there that are watching that don't know. So a woodworking router, it has a collet, and basically it's just going to spin a bit. But what makes a router extremely versatile is the fact that there are a plethora of different router bits. Actually, I don't know if the production team, if they can bring up that picture that I sent of my shop that was used on the social media stuff.
They probably have that.
But because there's
Take my picture off if you got that, Ernie, and put that one up if you got it.
It's the picture of the shop where you can see all the router bits on the wall. But even if they can, no big deal. There's just a ton of different router bits that do different things, from adding, different profiles, or from shrinking or enlarging the size of a shape. And, it's just, like I said, so versatile, so many things you can do. If you watch the videos, I mean, when I grabbed one of the little demo boxes here that we built at Brian's shop before, but, tons of different router technique on this thing here for, all the sides, adding the edge profiles, and then adding these grooves here for that polished aluminum. So definitely the router.
I would agree with you. That would be the two other, and I'm going to even be more specific than that, and that's the 1/4-inch router. The little hand router, the trim router, that is my favorite. The first time I got one of those, I absolutely just how did I live without this thing? It is so handy, and I'm actually use it quite a bit on these panels.
Yeah.
But I've actually refined that even farther, and I'm going to say the battery-operated cordless Makita.
I was going to say that. Yeah, with the battery technology now, the power of those things is insane. You can cut through like inch MDF with a spiral flush trim bit, like if you're doing cutouts or whatever for a subwoofer, and it doesn't even flinch. You know? And it's crazy. Yeah.
And, in fact, the LED technology, and that little Makita's got an LED that you can actually see what you're doing. So just
and the dust collection port they have on those now too. It's good stuff.
So I know if you hang around, which I'm going to invite you to hang out, if you want, when we start doing this, you're probably going to get a good laugh, and you're probably going to, call me up and say, I can't believe you did it. Anyway,
No.
I will say, unfortunately, I am old school. Back before all the safety, things have been implemented, I was good about wearing safety glasses, but just to make it known for, like legal purposes, when you're doing stuff with fiberglass resin and sanding like you're going to be sanding, you should probably be wearing a respirator.
Yeah,
but I unfortunately was not. I just went in and I'm so used to it. But we were in a really, really big facility. We're in a 256,000 square warehouse, and where we were doing it, it has walls but no ceiling. So, you weren't really confined with the fumes. But like I say, just be safe, guys. And like I say, especially safety glasses. And I was smart enough to put on gloves at some point. Sometimes I've done fiberglass back in the old days and didn't even have gloves.
End up a little itchy at the end of the day.
Well, not only that, your fingers get stuck together. It's... Like I say, it's a learning process, guys. But once again, thanks for being on, Mark.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell them your website one more time in case they missed it the first time, because you guys really need to go watch some of these videos. I mean, you're really going to learn a lot, and you're going to learn the right way to do stuff and the most efficient way to do things by watching his videos.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, Todd.
And don't forget to buy all your tools from Mobile Solutions.
Yeah. So, Brian and I work pretty closely together. He's one of the main sponsors of the channel. So, definitely check out Mobile Solutions as well. But, the channel
got everything.
Yeah, for sure. For fabrication, for sure. But, the channel's Car Audio Fabrication. You can find it on YouTube. And then website is also Car Audio Fabrication. And if I can just plug our show real quick, School of Fab, Brian and I, we do that the first Thursday of every month. So, actually, 2 days from now will be this month's, and it's perfect because you mentioned, and that's kind of why I asked the loaded question if those were wrapped or not. We're actually focusing on wrapping materials in this episode. So we asked the community what they wanted to hear next, and there were quite a few questions about that. And so you guys are getting a little bit of a preemptive information, a sneak peek. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, well, you're probably going to learn what you shouldn't be doing by watching the video I'm about to show you.
That's all right. But we're going to be talking about the tight. People always ask about like the real tight corners, how to wrap the vinyl around onto the back side of that, and just general good fabrication technique focused on that.
Well,
so
all I'll say about that is a heat gun is your friend.
Yes. We'll be talking about that for sure.
So great. So once again, make sure you guys tune into that. It's this Thursday, right?
Yep.
Good.
Thursday,
well,
right around the same time. So awesome. Yeah, we'd love to see you in there.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Mark. And like I say, you're welcome to hang out. And if you do get up, like I say, feel free to answer any of the questions some of these knuckleheads are asking over here. It's kind of funny with some of the stuff they come up with. But as always, like I say, thanks for being on the show, and we'd like to have you back sometime. If you've got something that you think would be fun for us to cover and think the guys would like, feel free to reach out to us. And like I say, we want to keep working together because, like I always tell people, we're all in the Hindenburg. No use fighting over the window seat. We're all in this together.
That's right.
So the more
That's
we can
right.
learn from each other, the better we all are going to be, and we can keep this whole exciting industry called car audio alive.
Yeah, for sure. I can hang around for a few minutes.
Cool. And like I say, if you have to go, that's great. I understand, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thanks, Mark. And if you talk to Brian before I do, tell him I said hello.
Will do.
And we are looking forward to Master Tech next year. And be thinking about that too, guys, as we start talking about events. And when I was talking with Brian, he's already got the facilities secured. So
Yep.
fantastic. Coolio. All right. Well, I'm going to ask Sandy to go ahead and pull up my laptop here. And we're going to go to a little bit of a dark screen. All right. So here we have the kick panel that you guys see in front of me. And this is one of the two that I built. And like I say, what I'm going to show you guys is not the only way to do things. It's maybe not the right way for you guys to do things, meaning some people have different abilities, some people do things a different way. But hopefully you can take some of what you're going to see here and apply it to some different areas and learn that fabrication is actually really fun and it's not that bad and you don't need a whole lot of special tools. I remember the first time I saw what back then in the late 80s was a custom door panel, which was an S10 pickup. The guy just literally cut the bottom off the door, made a 3/4 inch wooden panel, stuck a ring on it, wrapped it with vinyl, and put a speaker in it. I thought that was the most incredible custom panel I've ever seen. And now look what you guys are doing by what you were just showing us a little bit ago, Mark, and that little display piece. So I'm going to start this video and I'll do a little narration as we go, and we'll start it and stop it from time to time. But we're going to show you basically how this simple little kick panel was made. And here's another example of the same process that we used. This was a 67 Chevy pickup, and this is a 71 Chevy pickup. I got a theme going with 71 Chevy pickups. But this is the basic tools you're going to need to buy. And I bought all these at Lowe's just down the street. Here on the left, you've got a drop cloth, and that's going to be very important. Gloves, tape, some mixing cups, some disposable brushes, and of course, we've got a gallon of fiberglass resin. And down here in the bottom, there actually are safety glasses. So that included with the fleece, there's a total of about $120 in materials here. And don't panic, guys, because there's a lot of fiberglass resin there. I didn't use it all. Obviously, I didn't use all 50 pair of gloves, and I didn't use all the brushes or all the tape. So this is going to stock you up for your next project, or you definitely don't want to run out in the middle of doing one project, especially if you have a little bit of a problem, screw something up, and need to go back and redo something. It's no fun to actually have to go back out and buy materials.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah,
there?
absolutely.
On that tape too, I noticed you got a good a good masking tape. Always make sure that you guys do not skimp on the tape, because if you get like a cheap tape, you have to remember that resin, when it kicks and when it's starting to cure, it's like a thermal reaction, and it does create heat. And if you use a cheap tape, it will break down the adhesive in that tape. And you'll go to pull off everything after you protect it, which I'm sure you're going to show in a couple steps here, and there'll just be a massive goo up against your carpet or whatever you're grabbing the shape of.
Yeah,
so.
and that's no fun. I mean, I always joke about, in car audio, the one thing I hate more than anything is electrical tape, because if it's old, it's just like slime on the wires. So yeah, and you're exactly right with the glue, and that's the other thing I found out about using, contact cement and then trying to use resin over it. It can actually release the contact cement, and then it completely ruins your project.
Yep.
So, like I say, that's one thing. If you guys think, what you're going to see is like, hey, rather than stapling that, I could just glue it on. No, you can't. It doesn't always work that way, and of course, it depends on the glue you're using too. But just don't take the chance.
Yep.
So here we have two panels, which are the back plates, and we're going to show you this here at the end of the show. This is 1/2 inch MDF, and this is basically the way we're going to start doing it. And if anybody's wondering about the shape, that is just a generic kick panel based shape. This is not made for any specific vehicle. But what you're going to want to do is basically, if you have a flat, kick panel area, and that's what we're going to concentrate on this, because we just don't have time to show you every possible conceivable, variation. But get the form you want, and make a good strong backing, because once again, this is 1/2 inch MDF, and you would think that you would not be able to bend that, but I'm going to show you at the end of the show it does get bent, and I'll tell you how it happens, because it's actually kind of crazy that it'll really do that. So here again on the edge of those panels at 1/2 inch, you could leave these corners just at a 90 degree, that's just basically, cut out with a router. I made one and duplicated it with a router. And don't get into that habit make sure you test the panels on both sides of the vehicle, because most vehicles, the left and right kick panels, are subtly different, and don't assume that you can use the same pattern for both sides. So went ahead and took that here again with that little 1/4-inch router. I just rounded off that edge, it's a little cleaner look, and then when you wrap the cloth over this, it doesn't have such a thick edge look. And you could even take that down even farther. You could do a chamfer bit or anything you want. Once again, it's going to be up to the individual, what works best and the look they really want. But as we keep rolling, here's one form of ring, and we talk about speaker rings. This is going to be part of the mold. And if you look at that, when I cut this out with the router, and this was actually using a little bit bigger router, and I had a 1/4-inch plunge bit, I didn't go all the way through the piece of wood in one shot. I actually went just over halfway through with the first cut, flipped it over, and then cut through the other side. By doing that, you actually do not have to worry about the router chewing into the table or, possibly, cutting your hand or something. So just one way to do it. And if you notice, this ring is larger diameter than the speaker grill itself. You could easily make this, smaller diameter so it came right to the edge. It's just, once again, it's all the individual look that you guys are looking for, and you're going to be surprised when we get done with this of how much you don't see that hard edge on this panel. So the other type of ring that I use mostly is this one here, and this is where the speaker's actually recessed into the ring a little bit. And one of the things I like is it's a nice flow from the grill down to the edge. You don't have just a speaker look like it's just bolted on top of a flat surface, which is what we had in the previous one.
Yeah, that looks
so this
good.
is why I like to do this. And also, I guess I should pause it. If you notice, there's a little bit of a gap right here, and we're going to show you what that's for and how to get that gap, because that is really important you have that there. It's better if it's a little bit too big, but it's actually really bad if it's too small. This is what that ring looks like. It's actually started out as 3/4-inch MDF, and it is stepped down. So you got the mounting hole for the speaker. You've got the area, the landing area where the grill actually sinks down in. And then, of course, we talk about that little roundover, that 1/4-inch roundover bit, which is rounding over the top. And I always, when I do this, I make sure I keep this just a little over 1/4 of an inch thick. That way you've got a little bit of flat area on the top here. I mean, you're not going to see it when you're done. It can be sanded down. But that ensures that, if you're routering, if this was 3/16 of an inch and you got a 1/4-inch router bit, if you go around this ring the first time, if you try to go back around it again, it's actually going to cut deeper, because this radius here actually cuts down into the height. So make sure you have a little bit of a gap, and it doesn't have to be very much, just so you know that it's got a nice clean surface to bond to. All right, I'm not sure how we go. And here we are. This is the 6.5-inch speaker. If you notice, it's just under 7 inches in diameter. So what I did was I actually made it so the outer portion of that was actually, the inner portion of the grill that we're going to cut out. You want to make sure that you use the right side of the router bit, because there's a pin right here for the router, and if I'm going to cut an outside radius, I want to measure to the inside of the router bit. Have you ever done that, Mark, where you get that backwards and you make it too big or too small?
Definitely.
And it's okay if you make it too big unless you're doing an inside circle, but make sure you measure to the correct side of the router. And the reason that I went a little bit larger was to give a little bit of clearance for vinyl to wrap into that, and the speaker grill will drop down, and you don't want that too tight. So make sure when you're setting up your circle jig with your router that you have it, on the right side. And now we're going to do a little bit of time warp to show you guys a little bit of the process in our wood shop. And once again, this is one picture every 5 seconds, and there's that little 1/4-inch router that I like so well. And this is actually just making the speaker rings. I'm using quite a bit bigger router. That's a 3/4 horsepower plunge router that we're using to cut the rings. And you don't need one that big. That is actually a really, really heavy router. But it just happened to be the one that I already had the circle jig mounted on. And if you guys haven't figured out by now, you're going to make a mess. You see, by the clouds of dust, and that should have been my first indication. I probably should have had a respirator on. So we're making the various rings, and this next sequence, we've already got the rings made, and now we're going to mount the rings. We need to make little standoffs. So a lot of people, will overthink this step, in my opinion. Once this is all cured with the resin, I mean, these two legs are enough to support the weight of the speaker and ensure that it's not going to come apart. It's really there just to hold the ring till the fiberglass resin sets. So I've measured the angle. I've roughly lifted up, and you'll see when you watch the video that I actually measured how high I wanted the leg and estimated the angle and just trimmed it, and everything seems to fit. Once again, I always mount the speaker into the ring and then put the standoffs on to make sure I have enough clearance. The other thing you want to make sure you do, especially if your kick panels are somewhat symmetrical, is make sure that you glue everything on in a mirror image, so things line up correctly. You don't want one ring 2 inches higher than the other one for most applications. Now, once again, depending on what you're doing, you may want to do that or you may need to do that. So it's all up to that individual application as to where you actually do it. But I always try to make them as symmetrical as possible. And this is showing you on that speaker ring that there is clearance behind the back plate. You do not want that magnet actually touching the mounting surface that you're building the panels, because you're actually going to put some fiberglass resin on the inside, and that's going to add a little bit of thickness. So, and it's no fun to have to go back with a die grinder and carve the back of that panel out to make a little recess for the magnet to fit into. So make sure you give yourself plenty of clearance on everything you do. So let's go ahead and time warp this again through making the rings.
You've never had to do that, right? Never had to bust
No,
out the die
never.
grinder?
Not this week. I've had to do that on subwoofer enclosures. It just, sometimes it happens. Sometimes you build the box absolutely as big as you can. You got a shallow mount woofer. There was Ken stopping in to see what was going on. You have to make clearance. And in fact, I'm going to pause this since we're talking about that. I don't want to lose track of mine. In our CVT loaded truck enclosures, we actually purposely cut a hole in the back of the enclosure. Then we have a thick metal plate that bolts on from the backside to give it enough depth for the speaker to fit in, because the box had to be so shallow. So there's ways to solve just about any challenge out there. So we're getting the rings all mounted, and to mount the rings, I actually super glued them to the plate, and that's something else that I will suggest if you don't have a lot of time, and know your materials, because when you watch the video when I'm mounting the rings, actually the rings did come off, because the super glue I was using, because it was all we had at the time, I didn't realize we were out, was a gel. So the gel super glue does not soak into the MDF as far. It doesn't bond as well. So I had an issue with that. So, a simple, brad nail from the back, one in each of these little legs, and then one through the ring down into the leg, be sufficient to hold it extremely securely. In fact, that's what I went back to do, so I could actually wrap them and cover them immediately. But the next step you're seeing here is, like you were talking about, Mark, using the tape to cover up the areas that you do not want resin on. And this is, in my opinion, one of the most important steps on doing these kick panels, is because I've done it before, without realizing to do this, and I've talked to people and told them how to do it, and they didn't do this. When that fiberglass resin gets inside that inner ring, it can be a real problem to sand that out and get it smooth and get it to look nice, especially if you're going to paint your kick panels. So
the little bit of extra time right now putting that tape on will save you a ton of time later trying to clean up that ring.
And it really will. And like I said, that's one of those tips that just trust us on this, do this. It's, in fact, not only did I put tape on the inside of both of the rings to keep the resin off, and here you can actually see where, we've got a good, mating surface. I go around it real tight and then cut the top of it off with a brand new razor blade to make sure that you've only got the tape on the inside. Now, the back of that panel is also taped, and that's to release the back of the fiberglass, and then here's the flat ring. I did it as well. And the reason I did the flat ring, that doesn't have the recess, is because it made it up perfectly to the speaker, so I didn't want to have to go back and sand it or make it any larger. So you got a really good fit to the speaker. So just a little bit of prep work saves you a lot in the long run. So let's go back to the taping mode here. And like I say, this is a little tedious, but trust me, it will save you a whole lot of hassle in the long run. And then taping the back panel off. So anywhere you don't want fiberglass resin to stick, the masking tape is a great way to protect that material. So there we are. They're ready. In fact, we've got our fleece, we've got our scissors, and we've got a staple gun. And you don't have to have an air stapler to do this. It just works a lot better on MDF. But I mean, you know, the mechanical staplers will do the job. And I've actually done kick panels like this where I've not stapled them. I've actually pulled everything down and put wire ties, like a hair tie basically, you know, pulling all the material down. It doesn't sit as nice on a platform when you're putting the resin on, but if you don't have access to a stapler, you know, it is one way to do it. Like I say, there's more than one way to skin this cat. So I've laid out the panels, you know, so I know I've got plenty of access on all sides of the panels. And this is something interesting, and one of the guys are like, what in the world are you doing? Before I cut this material in half, I draw a line across the material so I know which way is up and which way is down. Because the fleece that we're going to use will stretch more in one direction than the other. So it's very important to put it on the same orientation because it's going to affect how the panel pulls and the curves and radiuses that you have to work with and how symmetrical they're going to look. So real simple, quick, easy process, quick step. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and wrap the panel. And here's one of those areas I told you I purposely did not go back and fix. The little bit of tear in the material here, I don't remember if I pulled the staple up, but you know, sometimes the material will pull, you know, I always start and I put a staple on the top, a staple on the bottom, then I go across the back in the middle and kind of set the amount of stretch I want to get that panel right. And you want to stretch this fairly tight, but not super, super tight. The fiberglass resin is going to cause it to shrink, especially if you mix it too hot. And if you have it too loose, the material is going to sag and it's not going to be symmetrical. It's not going to look quite as nice. So it's kind of a fine line between how tight you want to stretch it without getting too tight. And here's a view from the side. And if you notice, by stretching that cloth, I get this nice little radius from the ring to the surface. And if I pull it tighter on this edge or the back edge, it's going to pull that down even farther. So you can really control, you know, the amount of, you know, radius that you have. And if you didn't want this much of a radius, you actually would go to the top and bottom and pull that area tighter to pull it across this way. So there's different ways to get the radius, but you try to do both of them the same. It's going to be a lot easier. And here again, here's another view of that little radius on the side. And actually, let's see if I can get this to back up just real quickly. Here you can see that little 1/4 inch radius. I don't have a sharp point here, and it makes this back plate look thinner because it actually radiuses up to that. So that's one way to make that thicker back plate kind of disappear a little bit by, you know, putting a radius or a chamfer on it. So now let's go back into warp speed and let's show how we actually wrap these. If you watch close, you'll see I actually do, you know, one on the top, one on the bottom first, and this is where the rings come off. They actually, like I say, that super glue that I used, I've got the activator here. It just didn't soak through the fiber or the MDF enough, and it did pop loose. But here are the panels. Trim off the excess on the back. Now we're going to get ready to make a real big mess. Here's where your drop cloth really comes in handy and is almost necessary because you don't want to screw up that nice bench. So right here, after they're all stretched and we've got the fiberglass resin mixed up, make sure you follow the directions when you guys mix up your resin. If you mix it up too hot, it is going to cure much faster, but it's going to shrink more. And it is amazing the power of the resin when it shrinks, what it can do. And it warped these 1/2 inch panels. And I didn't mix it extremely hot. If you don't mix it up hot enough, they're going to stay tacky for a very, very long time. And in fact, the one vehicle that you're going to see the pictures of a little bit later, I actually let it sit overnight. It was still tacky the next day. I think I have some defective activator. It was actually done in Huntington Beach. It may have been humidity. So the weather does make a difference on the reaction of the resin. Now, you don't have to be really simple and clean with this, but here's one of the reasons why I use a very light colored fleece. I always try to use white, and if they're out of white, I'll get a really, really light blue. As you can see right here, where the resin has soaked through and contacted the MDF. So that's how you know you have enough resin, those areas that it's not going to lift off the MDF. You're not going to have a buzz, a rattle, but you can actually see through the cloth when the resin soaks through all the way. So we're going to continue with that process. We're going to basically soak the thing with resin. Here's another view of that where you can see the MDF through the resin. And here's the whole panel after it's been done. Now, if you notice, you'll see some lighter spots through here, and that's where the resin is not as thick. So that's once again, another great reason for using the lighter colored fleece is you can see, even if you can't see the wood, you can still see where you need to put more resin. And it's just something that you guys, as you do more of this, it's going to become second nature to you. All right, so here's a panel I did, and this is a perfect example of how you can see through that white cloth. You can actually see, I pulled this tight enough on the back side that you should actually see the standoff here. But a great, penetration through the fleece for the resin to bond to that panel, and you can actually see where the fleece is actually setting on top of the back of the panel here and here. So this panel, believe it or not, the back shape of it and the little hook here was a factory replacement kick panel. This was on a 67 Mustang, and I actually took a replacement plastic panel, reinforced it with some MDF on the back side, and used that as the outer shape and the form to get it to have the little lip that would actually go over the pinch weld on the vehicle. So you can actually, like I say, start with the form of the kick panel from a plastic replacement, just reinforce it because of the warping factor. So speaking of warping factor, now let's actually go watch this process. So we're going to go through it and soak it on here, and as you can see, it's not a delicate process. I mean, at least the way I do it. In fact, there are times I just pick up the cup and dump it on the bigger surfaces and just kind of brush it around. So making sure you get all the sides and make sure you get the edges covered really good. In fact, here's the other thing that I purposely left. You see a hole right here where the fleece actually tore. And that fleece is extremely hard to tear. I still don't know how that happened. But don't worry about that for right now, because we're going to do some work with these kick panels, and it's not worth stripping the entire kick panel apart to rewrap it. So here's the little patch that I actually made. I just cut a little piece of fleece, soaked it with resin, and stuck it over the hole, because all I'm really worried about at this point is having it be airtight so I don't have any issues with air leaking in and out and any noise from that. And we're going to go back and smooth that off anyway. So this is after the panel is cured, and there's that little patch once again, which we're going to sand down. And this is after I put the second coat of resin on. As I mentioned, I let it sit overnight. I put the first coat of resin on, and usually can do these kick panels. In fact, this was the whole process of building the parts were all done before lunch, and I put the first coat of resin on the fleece, went to lunch about an hour, came back. It was plenty firm enough that I could go ahead and put the second coat on. And what I always do is I dump some resin on the inside, and I literally walk the panel around to coat the inside of the fleece. And with the white fleece, you'll be able to see where the resin is actually dripping down and coating that inner surface to make it even stronger. And I put a second coat of resin on the outside as well, which is going to aid in the sanding process. Wow, guys, we're going to run late tonight, so I hope you guys are enjoying this. I just realized what time it was. So here we have the panel. It's basically 3 coats of resin, one for the fleece itself, one on the inside and one on the outside. Now we're going to time warp and show you this process, and you got to be careful when you're rotating this with the resin on the inside. It's going to drip out, and like I say, you do not, that's exactly what I'm doing there. You do not want to let that drip on your arms, because fiberglass on bare skin is not a lot of fun, but acetone, if you get it quickly, will take care of it. And there's the second coat going on the outside. And these are the 2 tools you're going to need, a good sander and a die grinder. And when I start prepping the panel with the recessed speaker, I've got this set at probably about a 15 to 30 degree angle. You don't want to do it flat. I'm going to show you why, but have it set up a little bit on an angle. So as you start going through the surface, and this is the recessed ring, you see the tape on the inside, we actually will sand through the resin and the cloth just enough to get to that flat wood surface, and that's going to release that center ring in a perfectly clean line. So in fact, the next picture will show a little bit better image of that. So you can see where you've got a little bit of wood showing, and this blank area here is resin, and then this is actually the cloth. So as you're sanding, you get down to start seeing the cloth pattern itself. It's not going to be long before you go through the resin and get to the actual wood. So it's a good indicator, and move your sanding disc a lot so you can see and you don't get any big gouges in it. And I always use about a 40 grit disc when I do this, so it does it very, very quickly. But here's actually taking the DA to the flat ring, and you'll see this has been sanded. Like I say, this is with an 80 grit disc, and if you're going to wrap these with vinyl, if you're going to, put anything else on them, or a texture coating, 80 grit's all you really need to do. You only need to go finer if you're going to paint them, and then you got to get a little bit more detail. But you see the darker areas, and that's areas of fiberglass that have not been touched by the sander. So this whole area is sanded smooth, and these are little divots in the resin that you need to sand some more. And there's going to be a couple pictures of different areas. You'll see this area here that you need more sanding, but this is actually sanded down pretty nice and smooth in these areas. So here again, just 80 grit on a disc is all you need. And if you're going to cover these with vinyl, some of these little pits like this, you're never going to see those. They're not deep enough that you're ever going to see them, so you don't have to worry about getting every single one out. And here's the ring, once again, when we sanded just down to that wood surface, there you see the cloth, and there you see the resin. And as I'm sanding these, I will run my hands over these panels just continuously as I sand them. The panel on the right is completely finished. It's ready to cover. This one is yet to be sanded. The reason I run my hands over these panels is your eyes will deceive you on panels like this. In fact, anybody that tints windows, they'll realize that, running your hands across the window, you can feel, something on the glass that you'll never see. Same thing with the panels. By continuously rubbing your hands on the panels, you'll feel low spots, you'll feel high spots, you'll feel where it's not smooth that you might not necessarily see. So I continuously, sanding with my, right hand and rubbing my hand on the left hand on the panel to, feel it just to make sure everything feels good. I got a good radius, over the speaker ring, but this panel's completely done, ready to go. And here's that patch that I did. After I sand it, it completely disappears. So here's the back of the panel, just like we did on the front. We want to cut that ring off by taking that die grinder and sanding till you see a little bit of the green tape. And once you pull the tape off and grind the staples down, you've got a perfectly smooth surface. And here are the two panels ready to cover. And once again, that is pretty much on the bottom of the kick panel. It would never be seen. This is a great picture of how much mess I made just making these two kick panels. So like I say, you guys are going to get messy. And let's go watch this sanding process again. And I don't think you'll see me, spend a lot of time, rubbing my hands on the panels, because it actually goes so quick in this time-lapse video. But what I just did there, I'm going to back this up. So I actually used the router with a flesh trim bit. I've pulled the tape off on the inside of the ring, so it's just the smooth wood. Now I can take the router and I can cut that center ring out. So like this one, I couldn't use it because there wasn't enough depth to get the bearing in. So that's why I used the grinder and the tape. But on this one, you can actually use the router to trim that cutout for the speaker pretty simply, which is what I just did there. And go back to sanding the panels. We're at 9 o'clock. Sorry, guys. So I'll try not to talk quite so much, but like I say, there's some good information, and you guys should hopefully learn a lot by doing this. So, of course, I got Chase, one of our helpers in the back. He's been on the show a couple times. He had to come see how I cut that ring out with the grinder. So, get the front surface of these panels all done, blow off all the dust, and then go back and grind the back off the panels. And you got a pretty good start for a great set of kick panels. There's really no reason to put Bondo on these unless you're going to paint them. There's no reason to put fiberglass mat on them. In my opinion, I mean, they're extremely solid and hard. And when you put vinyl on these, it's going to dampen the, any type of, ringing that you would get out of that fiberglass, but it's so thick anyway. But this is a great way to make some, absolutely sealed airtight panels. To mount these panels, very simple. I mean, you basically screw them right to the kick panel through the speaker hole. So you don't have to, make any custom brackets. You can actually just screw them in right behind the speaker to the kick panel, and they're locked firmly in place. So here we are grinding all the staples off. They are ready to go. Now we're going to start upholstering. Make sure you get a good coat of glue on the surface of both the panel and the vinyl when you start doing this. And you'll see this vinyl that I use very specifically on purpose. I used a vinyl that did not want to stretch very much. It's a very, very hard vinyl. Even applying heat to it, it'll stretch a little bit. But I wanted to show you what can happen in some of these areas that are really tight to wrap, but it's not necessarily a problem because once again, no one's ever going to see it. So we got this big old, doggy or elephant here where the vinyl was actually folded together because we just couldn't stretch it enough to get all the tension away from it. But that's not going to be a problem. In fact, that's the panel that's right in front of us here. We're going to go back in, we're going to trim this off, but you notice this area here was flat. And as Mark was talking, the corners, there's a lot of different ways to do the corners, and just one of the ways that, I've done it for years is I will heat this area of the vinyl up with a heat gun. You've got to be careful you don't melt it, but I will actually pull the vinyl down off the front side, and then I'll pull it out and wrap it over the top, and I put one diagonal staple in just to hold it in place. After you do that, then with some good heat on the vinyl, you can begin working each of these corners up from there.
Yeah, and the other important thing you did there right from the start is you made sure that those corners were rounded. That'd be the
so you don't tear the vinyl.
About leaving a hard corner, it's almost impossible to wrap. So
yeah, like I say, to make it wrap and make it wrap good. So of course, here's the panel, getting ready to be trimmed. Now I've already trimmed off the excess, but you got these little lumps where little creases are. And a quick, easy fix for that is you got to make sure that you don't cut where you can see the panel, but you can actually lay a razor blade, flush with the surface, and you can trim those little, extra little dog ears off. And there's a good indication of that. You still have, an area here that's completely wrapped and covered. So once you mount that to the vehicle, you're never going to see these areas. And here's the disadvantage of using an air stapler. Sometimes they're a little bit too powerful. They can cut through the vinyl. So you got to be careful with that. So here's that dog ear. We're going to dress it right now. We're basically just going to cut on both sides of that. And that's actually the rough cut right there. And no one is ever going to see that. That's actually, in fact, when we show you the kick panel, it's completely on the back side. Now we cut the speaker ring out, and here again, if this is a really stretchy vinyl, you don't have to make these other incisions to give it some relief. So try pressing the speaker grill into the ring. If it presses in pretty easily, use a little heat if it doesn't, and if a heat, some extra heat doesn't help, you might need to put a couple stress relief cuts in, but don't cut too far because you want to make sure that these are, not visible, around the speaker. Same thing if you're going to wrap the vinyl and tuck it underneath. Then here we have the speaker actually set into that speaker grill. And like I say, by leaving that little gap, it leaves room for that vinyl. And I actually could have gone about half that gap. I did about 1/8 of an inch on each side. You could easily do a 1/16 or a 32nd. Actually, sorry, it was an 1/8 inch total, 1/16 on each side. But the vinyl's really thin. But it just makes it so much easier to get that speaker grill in. And then if you need to get anything in and pop it off, you can do that. So a lot of fun with that panel, and that's pretty much the panel all done. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we're running out of time, but if you guys get really ambitious, and I don't recommend starting out doing this with kick panels, but this material here is called Landau foam. It's actually a foam they put underneath vinyl tops on some of the cars to give it a little bit of padding. Sometimes on amp racks or panels, I'll use the Landau foam to give it just a little bit of padding, because cars that have a padded dash, just feels a little nicer and having a little bit of texture in there. And you can see with this foam, this Landau foam does not want to stretch. Here again, make sure that any areas that it's going to bunch up, put it on the backside because no one is ever going to see that. In fact, it's even starting to tear a little bit right here coming over the edge. And this is the ring that was not routed. It is a 90-degree ring on the edge, but the fiberglass resin and then the foam are really going to soften that radius up to make it actually work pretty good. And that's actually the panel wrapped, so with the Landau foam. So you can actually do some really cool things with the Landau and give it kind of a classy little look. And we're going to actually put them side by side here in just a second. So you can see the differences cosmetically between the two. And there you can see that little bit of padding there as I push my thumb into that vinyl. It just gives it kind of a cool look. And of course, we're going to go back through the process and take your time with vinyl. Vinyl's not expensive. If it doesn't work, make sure you pull it off right away. Don't let that glue sit too long, but it is a contact cement. And there you go with the heat gun, pressing everything in to make sure it all fits.
Yeah, and somebody in the comments mentioned, when you're shopping for the vinyl, if you can do try to test, how stretchy it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there is a vinyl out there that's called All Sport vinyl. It's a 4-way stretch. I'd recommend people check that out if it's like one of their first wrapping projects, because you can really get a good feel for, a more advanced shape or wrap.
And it makes it so much more fun when it works easy.
Yeah.
And have
Definitely.
you ever had vinyl? I know I have, that it's almost too stretchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you pull it one way and it actually will fold, another, and it can be real pain. So you got to be careful, you want it to stretch somewhat, but there are times when the vinyl can stretch actually too much, and it actually gets to be even more of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is that stretchy and soft, it's more likely going to tear, real easy if you bump it, or so it's a lot softer vinyl. So here's a good picture where you can see the difference in the two panels. This is a much softer, rounder look, and the speaker is actually mounted on top of that. And this is a much more, crisp, refined line. So it just depends on what you guys are looking to do with your panels. Here again, there is no right or wrong. Here's that recessed speaker grill, kind of has that same radius. And here's the one that's with the padded vinyl, with the Landau top underneath it. Now, here's another little different process, and this gets into actual fiberglass, but just so you guys know, you don't have to start with a wooden back to your panel. Here again, we're using the tape, a lot of masking tape in the areas we want to put the fiberglass mat over, and I usually do about 4 to 6 layers of mat to make sure it's really thick and really strong. But after you tape everything off, put a good coat of car wax on that tape to help it release even better. The other thing is, I actually went clear to the floor and the firewall, and there's a reason I did that on this vehicle. It gives you a different shape. So here's that fiberglass panel. Now I've got an area I don't have to pull from the surface of the ring clear down to this surface here. It actually gives you a flatter, depending on what you're looking for, more cosmetically appealing panel. So that's another way to do it. And this was done on a 54 Chevy truck. And as we talk about, things shrinking, you can actually see the Bondo that I had to put in here to basically follow that contour as everything shrunk and moved. But these panels actually almost go straight back from the ring to the firewall, so you don't have a really big wrap to do like we did on those other two panels. So here's just some example. Here's another one. This is a 71 Chevy truck where I brought this panel way out. So it's almost flat from this surface across to this surface. You can almost put a ruler on it. So it really makes the vinyl pull very easy at that point, because you're not trying to stretch it as much.
And in that case, too, a different strategy for, your initial shape where you're using wood on the side there, but combined with the mold of the fiberglass on the bottom. So I like that.
Yep. And it's just, like I say, just trial and error. I unfortunately had no formal teachers doing this. I learned this all like the hard way, doing it all wrong the first 25 times. So here's another kick panel, and we talk about the use of different materials. This is actually expanded PVC. So the reason I use expanded PVC on this vehicle, this is a 68 Bronco that does not have a top. So there's times when it might get rained on, and you do not want water getting on MDF, running down the speaker and sitting in here. So the rest of the panel is going to be completely covered with resin, so it'll be safe. But that's why I used the actual expanded PVC and glued it together. And actually, we only had 1/2 inch at the time, so I actually took 2 different rings and glued them together to get the shape that I wanted. But you also notice the little cutout up here, and there's that panel done. Always test fit, your rings, put them in before you glass them to make sure you have clearance. This is the other one where when I first made this ring and this panel, the air conditioning unit was not in the vehicle. So if you notice how tight this is, it's actually touching right here. I actually had to move this ring before I fiberglassed it so it would actually clear everything that was in the vehicle. And also this is the door strap. There's a big buckle here for that strap. I had to make a cutout for that. I actually built that panel up with another little riser on each side to give it a little clearance for that, so you didn't have a big gap back between. So here's that panel, and here's that gap cut in. This is actually the driver's side. It's all ready to go and get wrapped. And here again, it's pretty tight here, but there is enough clearance. And then you've got that clearance for the buckle. Here's another 71 Chevy truck, and this is, and I'm gonna pause on this real quick, not to talk too much about the Foose logo, but using that exact same process that we build the kick panels, I built this little panel here exactly the same way you guys just saw, and this is actually lights up as a third brake light, but literally is just a trim ring with a little, form back by a little brace and then cloth wrapped over it, and it's very simple. So you can actually use this process to do many different shapes, many different things, for all different projects. Here again, this is in a 65 Chevelle. This is actually a little standoff for the crossovers here and here. It's a flat board underneath, wrapped with the fleece, and now I've got a nice contoured, mount for the crossovers just to make it a little bit more decorative and just not be a flat panel. And it does not take a lot, and that's actually got Landau foam under that too, just for fun. So here's a little different process, same like we talked about up until this point with the speaker enclosure. Now the only difference with the subwoofer enclosure is you have to reinforce it more than what we did with the kick panels. So you can go back in with a layer of fiberglass mat, you can go back in with layers of resin and keep building that up, but you're gonna have to rotate it almost every time and let it sit. So this was actually in one of the overhaulings, we didn't have the time to let it sit. So after I did the same process with the 3 coats of resin, I actually mixed up Duraglass, which is a combination of fiberglass and Bondo, and used that on the inside of the enclosure and actually caked it on the inside to reinforce the enclosure. And that enclosure was rock solid. So if you have to do this quickly, reinforce something, as long as you've got fiberglass resin, a good surface, and it's not bare cloth, you can take, Duraglass or Bondo and use that for reinforcement. It's not always the best way to do it. The fiberglass mat would be the best, but if you're pressed for time, it is one way to cheat the system just a little bit. So that was another interesting enclosure that we did just for fun on this vehicle, and there it is actually mounted in the vehicle with the crossovers. So that vehicle got all 3 of those last steps. Here's another one. This is in the trunk of an 08 Cadillac where we did 412s and did the same thing. This piece on the top was actually removable. Now, this picture is here again. You can see the factory panel that I started off with. And there's a reason why I did that is because this has got a little step that goes over the rocker panel, and then this plastic actually lips around the pinch weld. That's almost impossible to duplicate and do it cleanly. So by wrapping it in the cloth, it actually worked very well. But this little bump right here is actually very important. There's going to be another picture with that in there to show you why. It's the advantage to use the factory panel. And that's the finished panel. Here's that little bump right there, and with the door open, it looks very out of place. But once the door is shut, and the door is not shut here, this part of the door actually fits into that contour perfectly, so it finishes it out, so it doesn't have a drop off between the kick panel and the door. So look at all aspects of the installs, as it all fits together, and that way you can get everything seamlessly. Here's another door panel, used aluminum, 1/4-inch aluminum for the back plate. Same process, but what we did on this one to get these recesses is actually did a little different process, is I actually made plastic coated rings and I actually pressed them in. There'll be another picture of it here. But here's that panel again, and this area here, I try to incorporate design elements of the car through the rest of the install. This is a Crossfire, and it's got 3 vents with this little support on the backside on the front fender. So I brought that design element back into the car, and this is all about having fun with it, making it creative. Here's the little Dodge Neon. Same thing, we want to make some mounts in the rear deck. We're going to do almost the exact same process. But now the areas I don't want the fiberglass to stick to, I've wrapped in plastic, but I want it to stick to the outer ring. And I had to go back in and make plugs for the top to push them down and screw them into those other panels, and that gives you the recessed. And when you pull everything off, this whole panel pops off, and that's actually fleece again. And it's going to wrinkle, which these are all wrinkles because it's a thick material. So on this particular panel, we did have to go back and coat the entire panel with Bondo because this panel got painted to smooth it out. And there you see the panel. And that's going to house the equalizer and the 2 crossovers. So you can really use this process to do just about anything and have some fun with it. So I hope you guys had some fun and learned a little bit. And Mark, I want to thank you for hanging out.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I like what you showed us.
Show these guys this panel real quick in front of me. We talked about this being 1/2 inch thick, and I don't know if he can pan the camera down just a little bit. To go down a little bit with the camera so they can see the base Keep going down with the camera. Keep going. Don't think it's that. It's actually this camera over here. Sorry about that. Oh, here he is. Okay, so now you see on this side over here, you see that gap? That's how much it warped that 1/2-inch panel.
Woo.
And it was not mixed extremely hot. So if I was going to put this on a flat surface, and I want this to mate perfectly to the flat surface, once again with the tape, you would tape this panel off with masking tape, put the panel where you wanted it, and then swipe some Bondo in it and tuck it, real deep in between. And then when you pull that off, it's going to have a perfect contour like you saw in that 54 Chevy truck. So that's one way you can fix those gaps. And then if you look at the back of this panel, you'll see that seam, but this is going to be against the floor. It's never going to be visible. So cool, simple way to make some panels. And like I say, I hope you guys had some fun and learned something. Do we have any questions that have popped up, guys, that we need to answer? I know we're running really late on time. You guys are probably wanting to win something. I think that's the big thing. Which is better for SQ, kicks or door pods? Well, that's obviously SQ is a personal opinion. Let's see what you think, Mark. You want to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say. It's so application dependent. It depends on it quite a bit.
Well, yeah, and I've always said, for staging, there's two ways. You can have a really wicked processor or a really wicked install, or both, obviously. But if I were to answer that question just off the top of my head, I'm going to say for SQ kick panels, because that's going to push that sound stage more to a one-to-one reference left to right, and you're not going to be blocking the speakers with your legs. So I personally would say in the kick panel. So let's give away some stuff. I know you guys want to give away some stuff, and if you guys want to ask questions, we'll keep going. And if you can hang out, Mark, great. If not, we'll keep going for a little bit.
I'm going to take off, but thanks again for having me. I appreciate you guys.
No problem. Thanks for sticking around, Mark, and like I say, hope to have you back on the show again in the near future.
For sure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Take care. Have a good night. All right. Well, that was Mark from Car Audio Fabrication. Like I say, we're running really behind, and I apologize, guys. But let's give away some stuff. We keep talking about doing that. We're only, about 25 minutes past when we should have given something away. Third prize winner. Who's going to get the EB400s? That's going to be Leanne K. from Minnesota. I was up in Minnesota just a couple weeks ago. Was up in Minneapolis. So Leanne K., look for that email. I'm not sure if it's going to come from Sandy or Bill, but you're going to get an email from Kicker. Respond with your name, address, shirt size, and once again, phone number, because they got to have a phone number for shipping. But third prize winner, Leanne K., congratulations. Second prize winner is going to be Patrick P. from Louisiana. So Patrick P., once again, watch for that email. You're going to win the Tabor Bluetooth headphones, which are the over-the-ear Bluetooth headphones, and the koozie and the gray Kicker Unmasked shirt, which is going to bring us to the grand prize winner for tonight, and that's going to be James R. from Washington. Congratulations, guys. James, watch for that email, and once again, appreciate everybody for tuning in and registering to win. And like I say, keep watching the show. We're going to keep giving stuff away and keep giving your input and any questions you have or any suggestions, and make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. So that being said, we still got quite a few people tuned in. I really appreciate you guys, hanging out with us for this long and watching what's going on. Any other good questions that we got going on before we close the show tonight? All right. Living Loud with Andy says, for a guy doing door panels for the first time, what are the first 3 tips for them before they start that project? That's kind of interesting because it's all going to depend on how involved that project is. I mean, obviously, first 3 things I'm going to suggest that you do when doing something on a door panel is figure out what you want to accomplish. Are you trying to do mid and high frequencies? You're trying to do mid bass? You're trying to do SPL? You're trying to do sound quality? Once you get that figured out, you're going to want to make sure that you have the room for the speakers you're going to put and you have the clearance. I've actually seen people build really, really incredible door panels, and then they go to shut the door and it hits the dash. So make sure you have the speakers, everything you want, make sure you have the clearance to do so, And then obviously you need to think about other things, such as if you're gonna run, say, an 8-inch woofer and a 3-inch mid in the door, you want to isolate those two so the 8-inch doesn't affect the 3-inch. You don't have the pressure waves from the 8 pushing on the 3-inch. So there's a lot of different things to think about when doing door panels, but you can use a lot of the same process. And you just saw that Crossfire video. I basically did the whole bottom of that door panel with that process. So you just use bits and pieces of this and do it a different kinds of ways. Would steam work instead of a heat gun? Yeah, actually, the whole point is to get heat into the vinyl. Now, obviously, steam is going to work really good with leather because it's going to soften up the leather and allow it to stretch even more. But the whole point of using a heat gun is to get heat into the vinyl, and you can do that with steam because that gets extremely hot as well. Sometimes on different type of materials, the steam will actually shrink and take wrinkles out of the material too. So there's advantages for both. And a good question. I'm glad you brought that up because there's a couple applications in the back where I've had to use steam, but in this application, pretty much with vinyl, you can almost always use a heat gun. And heat guns are a lot easier to get a hold of than a good steamer. So another question. Thanks for that, Brian. Appreciate that question. That's it. All right. Guys, we went 22 minutes or 20 minutes. I think that clock is a couple minutes fast. Guys, I really, really appreciate it as always. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I hope you guys had some fun, and I hope you guys will take some of the tips. Like I said, this isn't the end all to be all. I mean, watch some of Mark's videos. He does some incredible projects and makes them very simple. This is the way I've done things for many years, and it doesn't take a lot of special tools. You can make these rings with a jigsaw. I mean, where we got the router lip in here, we can just make that 2 pieces like we did with the woofers, because the woofers had to be quite a bit thicker for that mounting lip. But you can do pretty much everything we saw here with a jigsaw and a few basic supplies from your local hardware store. So go out and try it, guys. And like I say, know your vinyl, know what it's going to do. And like I say, don't stress, over certain little things. Just remember the whole process and what the guy that hired me, Dan Jobin, he always used to tell me when I'd stress about, the littlest thing, he always would tell me is sensory overload. He said, if they're going to pick that up, they're missing the entire point of the whole build. And he's exactly right. You don't have to have every detail perfect unless you're working on a Riddler car. And if you don't know what that is, look that up online, because you're talking, $5, $6, $7 million cars and where everything has to be perfect. But for what we're doing and what you guys are doing, do your own projects, make them your own, and be proud of them. Show them off. So, thanks, guys. In short, Baba says, for the win. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And congratulations to the winners. And I won't see you next week, but I'll see you the week after. I'll be in Portland and Seattle up there, probably trying to stay warm if I know anything about that area this time of year. So, guys, take care. Hope you had a good one, had some fun, and thanks again, and good night.